Good evening. Welcome to the July 2nd Bellevue School Board meeting. Mr. Badouris, would you please rise and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board affirmation statement. Member Campbell.
Our mission is to empower all learners to be college and career ready and to develop, grow, and achieve as productive citizens.
Thank you. Agenda, Mr. Grisafi.
Yes, recommendation is to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Anyone in the audience who wishes to address the board this evening? Hearing none, seeing none. Information reports.
Thank you, President.
Oh, I'm sorry, action report. I skipped one. Pardon me. 6, Ms. Nash.
Thank you, President Quigley. This evening we have Action Report 6.1, the Consolidated Action Report for Certified and Classified Personnel. We are seeking your approval this evening for 33 items for certified staff, 10 items for classified personnel, and 2 items for certified administrative personnel.
Motion
So
to
moved.
approve.
Second.
Motion seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Roll call vote, please.
Member Gilbo?
I'm sorry, what am I voting on?
The Consolidated Action Report.
No.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Badouris?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Sorry about that. President Quigley? Apologize.
Next up, information report, job description 7.1.
Yes, 7.1 is an information report for a new job description for the position of high school activities coordinator. This position is being proposed to meet the needs communicated for supervision of co-curricular activities in a manner that will better mirror the supervision of athletics. It is for the sharing of logistical responsibilities and will allow the assistant principal to better focus on supervision of activity quality as well as instruction. And it will put our district, our schools in alignment with similar high schools in our conference with respect to personnel that are dedicated to activities. If there are further questions, please feel free to contact me before the next board meeting. We are seeking to have this for your approval at the July 16th meeting. And in addition, Mr. Rose from BHS and Mr. Kinder from RHS are present and can address additional questions this evening.
Rob, you want to say anything on this, or you want to see if anybody's got any questions? Yeah, step up to the microphone if you would. While he's coming down here, as you do or do not know, most people in the audience probably recognize, we have literally hundreds of activities. It's not just sports. There's all kinds of clubs and academic things that students participate in. You know, some are fun, some are more geared towards academics, some are geared towards athletics, obviously. And I think Rob can better adjust to that, just at the very least at the BHS level.
Yeah, so Derek can at some point maybe comment on Romeoville. Obviously, this is for both high schools. Over the years, I'm going now into my 7th year in this position. If you don't know how things were back before 2005, before this position was created to basically encompass all athletics and all activities, activities were handled by a separate AP in the building, and the athletic director was on his own. And then in 2005, it became an administrative position, and athletics and activities were combined. And just kind of looking back on things, I feel like that shift, you know, we've always been, our athletics have been out in the open, they're known, but we have some tremendous students involved in activities. We have over 70 clubs and activities at Bolingbrook High School, 23 athletic programs. We have 75 or so sponsors for our students. Just to give you some numbers, in 16, 17, just in online signups alone, we had roughly 1,770 online registrations. Last year, that number was 1,880. So there's a demand, and what I've noticed over the last 6 years is we've had more and more students wanting to sign up for or create clubs and activities that we do not currently offer, and we've added a number of those over the last 6 years. There are a number of initiatives that I would like to put in place, from code of conduct, which we do not currently have for activities, as well as mentoring, professional development programs for our sponsors, attending monthly meetings, basically having more eyes and ears for accountability purposes with our sponsors, and making sure and ensuring that they're providing the most opportunities for our students. I think when we look at the rest of our conference that we're in, you do have designated activity directors at those schools. I can also tell you that I am the only one in the conference, the only athletic director that does more than one evaluation. I know one of the requests from me is that I play a larger role in the building, academics, evaluation of teachers, those cycles where you're evaluating. I'm trying to get to the point where, and I know Mike over at Romeoville is trying to get to the point where we are doing our job effectively with fidelity. And I think adding this position, which I believe is a full-time position based on, I think there are 20 schools in the state of Illinois that have populations over 3,000. We are only one of two who do not have a designated activity director in place. So I think in order to get in line so that we can really kind of explode our activities and continue to do the great things that we're doing and get even better, I believe the position should be added. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
I spoke with Rob this afternoon for a long time, as well as Judy. And I guess in my heart, the thing I cannot handle, and this has nothing to do with Rob or the other high school, is the fact that the junior high, the middle school athletic directors teach all day, have no plan period, no secretary, no assistant athletic directors. They have to be at every activity after school. All the stuff is done, and yet they had their plan period taken away from them, one plan period. So if the weather changes and they have to cancel, they literally have to have a substitute come in, take over their class that they're teaching, go out to make phone calls to the schools, the bus companies. So in my heart, I have trouble accepting another person at the high school when we can't even, as a district, let our athletic directors who work their butts off at the middle school have even a plan period. That's my problem. I think it's outrageous that we treat them that way.
Is there a methodology by which we can take a look at that? How we might better accommodate? Obviously, what we have at the high schools is more, because we have more students in those schools. But if it's also an additional or extremely additional burden at the junior high level, is there some way we can look at having it available for these people to have a planning period at the very least, and have some opportunity to maybe put in some, Deb decided the advantage, rain outs or something like that. But there's obviously there's chess clubs and so on and so forth at these other, all that kind of, is there a way to, maybe we can kind of start taking a look at that, and at a subsequent board meeting, you guys could bring something back to us and saying, hey, let's look at a way.
I think it was 2 contracts
this.
ago, the middle school ADs had a release period associated with their position. And through collective bargaining, it was given up. I think the belief at the time was that the stipend associated or attached to the athletic director stipend would be sufficient to compensate that individual for the work they did, and it shouldn't be joined, if you will, with a release period. Since that time, and I think that was 2 contracts ago, several of the middle school ADs have expressed how difficult it is in managing primarily the athletics without that release period. And so that's something that I believe may have even been brought back to the bargaining table at our last contract, the contract that's expiring here before us, and for one reason or another never made it to the final agreement. We have not seen it come back this time around, but that's not to say that it's not, any less needed. I think there is some recognition that it is difficult to manage the scope of athletics and activities, after school only, and teaching full time. So. Absolutely. I mean, there is a cost associated with it, but it's not just about money. I mean, it's about making sure that we're doing things that, we can manage without, putting people against the wall, so to speak, by having to find a substitute internally to cover that period in the event that something needs to happen.
But if education is that important, then you're saying it's okay for that teacher who's teaching a class to have a substitute come in and go, here, I'm going to sit here for 20 minutes while you go make phone calls. And I'm not against you, Gary. This is, to me, ridiculous. We can say yay or nay to a position that's going to cost the district between two buildings, probably $250,000, and say yay or nay, but we can't even get those athletic directors at the middle school any help, just because contractually we said two times ago, so 4, 5, 6 years ago, that they would lose their planned period. The athletic directors had nothing to say about it. It was done through the union, and I don't understand. I don't understand how the union can say it's okay for them not to have a secretary, they don't have an assistant, they teach full-time, they don't even have a planned period, yet they are athletic director and they have to deal with buses and, all the referees and all the games and scheduling and everything else, and they do the clubs also. So until we can prove that we're going to do something for these middle schools, I have trouble with this, so.
I guess my recommendation would be that we take a look at what we can do with the junior highs in the short term. And if we can handle, if there's internal mechanisms that we can handle with or without going into the collective bargaining stuff, if there's some methodologies we can do to manage these things, to make it more efficient and, just make it better, we should probably try and do that.
Yeah, this is not anything that I would be opposed to. I mean, it is something that I think has been on the radar for some time. We collectively meet every other month as an activities council, and these issues do come to the table, and how difficult it is to manage, particularly in coming out of the spring that we just had with all of the rain, how difficult it was to manage. And so I guess our position always has been that, let it be collectively bargained, but if the board's directive is make it happen, that shouldn't be a difficult task.
Okay, so bringing the conversation back to Rob's, to the job description that's here. So right now, you have yourself and Mike, and then you have 2 assistants.
2 assistant athletic directors that those stipends were initially put in place for the purpose of supervision.
Right, okay, so the assistant athletic supervisor, ADs, do those 2 people split the one stipend, or do they each get that stipend?
No, there is, at both high schools, there are 2 stipends each.
2 stipends each. And so with this new position, will one of those be going away?
That was the discussion. That was something that we discussed, and I was in favor of letting go of one of the assistant athletic director stipends, yeah.
So the other assistant athletic director would be still a full-time teacher, and they would get that stipend to do?
Correct. To do primarily
assisting.
Supervision. Yeah.
Right, okay.
And then the idea was that whomever is hired, if this position is approved, that person would continue to assist with supervision so that it stays at 3 people throughout the seasons. It's extremely difficult to do supervision between 2 individuals. That's very rare.
So I guess what I would expect to see then from this new position would be that this person that's over activities, would be going to all, like, twice a year, maybe stop in the NHS meeting.
Correct.
Twice a year, stop in the chess club meeting, go to a mathletes competition once a year.
Yeah.
Go to the band or choir concerts or activities, that kind of stuff. Is that what this is going to
Correct,
include?
that's a part of it. In fact, that's in the job description, that they attend. My recommendation would be that the person attends every organization's meetings at least twice a year. Clubs and activity sponsors are required to hold at least one monthly meeting each year, each month. So that would certainly be, and then in addition to attending fall plays, spring musicals, madrigal dinner, a chess match, scholastic bowl match, etc.
So band, choir, musical, that all would fall under activities.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I talked to Derek earlier today. We'll step a little further away. I talked to Derek earlier, so I understand how Romeoville does it, but at Bolingbrook, who handles the activities right now?
So right now, one of our assistant athletic directors, Jen Smith, is used in a way that primarily she attends the conference meetings, which are monthly, and serves as kind of a mentor with me, although there hasn't been too much mentoring, but she's kind of a point person. If an activity sponsor needs something, they can reach out to Jen, and Jen would reach out to me. And then in terms of scheduling, building usage, transportation, I still handle those things. Jen didn't take it to that level, but primarily just a representative for the conference, for Bolingbrook High School at the conference level, as our pseudo activities director, and that's primarily it.
So would you say it's efficient already?
I would say it is not efficient. I would say we have a significant, I think currently as it is, I think our students could be better served. I think we need to do a better job of recruitment. I think we have some clubs and activities that if you look at other schools, I think because they have assistants with activity coordinators, directors, that they are able to work with the sponsors directly for recruitment efforts, fundraising efforts, all those things that, typically at most schools around the area, you have an AP of athletics and activities, and then you have an AD, athletic director, and you have an activities director. So that's kind of the structure, and when this position was created, it was all just cramped into one. So I do not feel like it's efficient right now. Jen only really goes to the conference meetings because I can't be out of the building more than I already am out of the building currently. And I'm not aware of Romeoville's structure with how they have things set up.
So this new position will not get a stipend?
They would not get a stipend, but we did put in the description that because of that third person needed for supervision, that they would be eligible for event pay, like people would work a track meet or something like that.
They also had over 200 days, correct?
Correct, it would go from 185 to 200.
I have a question about the event pay. So they're going to get a teacher's salary. They're not going to teach during the day.
Correct.
So they'll have all day to do the stuff they need to do for activities.
Correct.
But then they're going to get event pay after school. Does the assistant athletic director get event pay?
No, because their current stipend, as it's been created, is designated primarily for that supervision.
And about how many events would there be?
I can think of maybe, Wednesdays, and it depends on the season, but on average, I would say that each of us works roughly, on average throughout the year, 2 nights a week, and probably a Saturday every maybe 4 or 5 weeks.
And the length of those events?
On average, you're probably looking at anywhere from I would say around 2 to 2.5 hours, depending, football games and basketball games are longer, but most of the other sports you're looking at about 2 hours.
Are there any other coordinators that get paid in addition for their jobs after hours? Do we know that?
I am not aware of any, but I don't know if there are any that currently are in stipended positions.
Any other coordinators?
Oh, coordinators. There are occasional times when they hold meetings after school, beyond their hours, that they are paid for facilitating those meetings.
Are there any teachers that get additional pay for staying after to work on anything after school?
There are many teachers who get paid for staying after school on a regular basis for a variety of programming or work, curriculum, committees.
If they have a stipend, but
If they have a stipend for that particular duty,
so if they tutor students after school,
there's some discretionary stipends or some club stipends that exist, and if that's the nature of the club,
Yeah,
they
if
receive
they-
a stipend for it. For that time, they do not receive pay on top of that. If they're doing that type of service, providing that service to students outside of their normal day, and they don't receive a stipend, they do receive extra pay for student contact time.
Any staff member covered by the collective bargaining agreement could be eligible for event pay if they so chose. It is prescribed in the contract.
if they work with students after school but they don't get a stipend, do they get additional pay? I know if somebody signed up and they're on the roster to work a basketball game, they'll get event pay. If they're working an activity, they'll get event pay. But if they are not on that list of people to be able to do that, if they stay after, do they get additional pay? They don't, right?
Well, if they're there for like tutoring after school, that is like a program that the school offers, they get paid. Now there are dozens, hundreds of teachers across the district that stay beyond their contractual time to meet with students or help students or make phone calls. They don't necessarily get paid unless it's part of like our Title I tutoring program or after school homework help that is part of a program. But it's not just a blanket that anytime a teacher stays, after to help with the student, that is paid. I mean, teachers do that all the time.
Okay, and then I guess another question that I have, it says the individual selected may not hold additional co-curricular positions, but is eligible for that event pay. So if they hold or collect a stipend for any club or, well, it says that they can't do any co-curricular, but it doesn't say any activities. And is there a difference there?
To my knowledge, activities falls under co-curricular.
So, Rob, and Derek, I guess I'm asking you that as well. The people that are in this position now, do they get any additional pay as the assistant athletic directors right now?
The only, I can probably count on one hand where I've been in a jam and one of my two assistant athletic directors was not scheduled to work, let's say on a Saturday, and I needed somebody to run a clock for a soccer game, then I would hire them to work the clock for the soccer game. But no, that's not common. That's only in an emergency type of situation.
Okay, Derek, how about at Romeoville?
Mr. Kinder apparently wants us.
Yep.
Mr. Kinder, sorry.
No, it's good. At Romeoville High School, Krista Simpson is holding the position as one of our assistant athletic directors, which is over activities. And she currently does hold a stipend as our student leadership leader as well as our assembly coordinator. So she receives 3 stipends in total, one as the assistant athletic director that oversees activities, and she also is the student leadership sponsor and event or assembly coordinator. There's a stipend that goes with that. So she does.
So would she lose that if she got this position?
Yes, she stands to lose about $19,000.
Can the assistant athletic directors at this point in time, can they coach? I don't think at the junior high they can.
That was something that we had put in place years ago when the assistant athletic director split into 2 positions. I know Sally was part of that with Jeff Bambule,
if you were to assume the assistant athletic director stipend, and at the time there was 2 head coaches that were going to have to vacate their positions in order to assume those roles, and I think it was at both high schools. The district made that decision in coordination with the union to, if a person was holding a coaching position, they had to vacate those in order to assume the assistant athletic director position after an interview.
So that's not true, though, at both schools, is that correct?
It is not.
Okay, why is it different?
This is the first I'm hearing of it, to be honest with you. It is my preference, and I make that clear in the interviews, that I would rather not have people, but given the fact that the collective bargaining agreement is in place, I was not under the belief that I could prevent somebody from pursuing a co-curricular position if they had one of the assistant athletic director positions.
Okay, so things aren't quite the same between the 2 of the high schools. I know at Romeoville High School, as Derek says, I used to hold one of those positions, and I know that it entailed much, much, much more than just supervision, and that they do a lot. I know where you're at because there's so much to do, Rob. I agree that this is something that is valuable. I have a concern with leaving the athletic director with only 1 assistant. I also have the same concerns Deb has about the middle schools, because I have coached at the middle school with the athletic director there and saw what they had to go through. Not having a secretary assistant, any time off, for many, 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 many years. So I do have some concerns about some of that. I'm not saying that it's not something that is valuable, but there are things that have to be thought about, I think.
Sure. Let me just add too, although supervision is the primary reason for the stipend, our assistant athletic directors also do other things, such as help out with awards, help out with parent meetings, that type of thing. I am the 2 assistant athletic directors that I've had now for 2 years. I had an assistant athletic director that I mentored for a few years. He went on to East Aurora to become their athletic director. Chuck Merrick was an assistant athletic director. He was one of the best that I've seen. He is now an assistant principal at Bolingbrook. So it's also, as you know, it's a challenge when you get someone new into a position. I don't want to flood them with too many things too, and I would say if it continued to stay in the same structure, they would continue to take on more responsibilities, but far less than what things exist within this document.
Okay, I have one more concern. I see that it says willingness to flex daily schedule, start, end time, lunch time, to be able to meet with educators during various times throughout the day and evening, and supervise events during evening hours. So I know that they do that already, but when I see the term flex time, to me, flex time means that if you're working in the evening hours, that you can come in later during the day hours. I know that that is not a capability of probably you right now, or the athletic director at Romeoville High School, or the assistants, or the activities people, that if they stay late, that they can come in late. I know in the past, when Dennis Schley was the athletic director, he was able to do that. I'm just wondering what the interpretation of this job description is when they say flex the daily schedule.
I've been very fortunate that Dr. Paskavich has allowed me to do that somewhat, because if I got there at 6:30 in the morning and left at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, I'd be putting in 70 to 80 hours a week. So I'm fortunate to be able to do that, and I'm thankful that he's let me do that. I think the flexibility piece is, there are certain points during the year where you are having to stay late for things, and so as not to put too many hours on the person, I think that was the rationale behind it, and I don't think it was You know, coming in at 10 or 11 o'clock, I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm thinking a half hour, hour later, something like that. That's how I interpret the flex.
Derek, is it like that at Romeoville High School? Mr. Kinder, I'm sorry.
And no, it is not. Mike's with us every day and stays late and does his, he's there at 7:15, 7:30 every morning and stays late all the way through. I'm not necessarily, I appreciate, I kind of follow in the footsteps of Jim Baduras, who was in the position, and Dennis before him, and him preaching to me the value of being in school as well, as you know that, Sally, with being in there at 7 o'clock or 7:30. So Mike is there, so that's not the case. Same thing with Krista and Christina Douglas, who are currently holding those positions. They don't have a flex schedule currently.
And what would some of the times be that they might stay till if there was a basketball Thanksgiving tournament?
My guess would be anywhere between 9, 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night. Football, you're looking at 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And it's not just working the actual events, it's the setup, it's making sure that, you know the drill. It's making sure that maintenance has done everything they needed to do, just making sure that our facility is prepared for the public to walk into. That's a big part of it.
But this new activity coordinator position is not going to be staying late for football games, basketball games, because they're doing activities, correct?
That's true, but if ideally, that person is taking on a third of the supervision duties still. That's where the additional event pay came into the document. Because we're taking away one assistant athletic director, so that would bring us down to 2 supervisors for athletic events. This person would add in that third one.
So if they're having flexible time, they can come in late, stay late, or come in late, and because they're staying late, they shouldn't be getting event pay then.
No, they shouldn't. And honestly, the flex schedule is something that I don't need to hang on to. It's not something that I'm adamant about. If they're going to be there at 7 o'clock or whatever the time is, and they're staying until 4 o'clock or whatever the time is, then that's what the time is. We don't need to do a flex schedule, though.
Yeah, I would think that you would want to be fair to all, and whatever one has, the rest should have. I would like to see that. I know it really takes a big load off, not teaching and being responsible for all of those things. I also look at the other end of it. When we get an abundant amount of coordinators, then we have less student time with more coordinators. So those are some things I look at as well.
So this, again, this is a, information, so if you guys have further questions, you might want to vet out with either the building leaders or our HR or, anybody down at the other end of the table here.
Right, and
Okay,
just to add one thing, President, quickly. And Deb and to Sally, to speak to what you're talking about, that release time that the middle school ADs don't have, and currently our assistant athletic directors don't have. Sally, you lived the role and saw it from that perspective. But I also, I have the luxury of working with Krista Simpson, who's a wonderful assistant athletic director and activities director, and she's putting in countless of hours with kids, after hours, and assembly coordinator, student leadership, volunteer activities with our kids, meeting with different things, and she's had the benefit of being our district suspension coordinator with a kind of a flexible schedule during the days to meet with 6 through 12 and work with all those kids. But I also saw her teach 5 periods a day and try to carry that workload and doing the different things, and seeing the work that is put on our band directors and our choral directors and our musical directors and our fall play directors, and they're teaching 5 classes a day, running around trying not only to find instruments, tune instruments, pay bills with no secretarial help, that type of thing. This position is really designed for us to help support them in that capacity. I know I can speak for Romeoville High School just in some of the rhetoric that goes with supporting this position. It's really giving Krista Simpson, if she's the applicant of choice when this position is posted, the autonomy to work during the day to support the clubs and activities that support our curriculum throughout the day, to also coordinate events, go to meetings, go to their department meetings, support them, observe their classrooms, those type of things to help them do the things that they're able to do, the magic that they're working with all our kids and all our activities and clubs. throughout the day, that our athletic director has that autonomy with no class schedule to work with those kids. I mean, as Rob said, I mean, the abundance of supports and different things that in many instances that are afforded to athletics and the autonomy that are there, the burden is the same way with our activities and our arts and all the different things that our kids are exploring, and we just want to basically support them the same way across the board at all levels.
And I'm not saying that that's not necessary. I was athletic director without pay when this district cut athletics at the middle school level. I went in as athletic director without pay. I understand what they do, and I agree that they need that. My thing is, until this district wants to say the middle school is just as important as the high school, and they need at least some time off. They don't have a secretary, they don't have assistants, they don't have time off at all. And yet they're expected to do their job. I'm saying until we recognize them as important, then we recognize the high school as important. And I agree, you guys need the help, without a doubt.
Again, thank you, Derek, well said. Rob, thank you for your input.
Thank you very much.
Anybody has any comments or questions? I'm assuming this will come back at another meeting. If there are any dramatic changes from those conversations, kindly highlight those for us so we are aware of what may have been discussed, or at least bring that up at the next meeting.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving down the agenda, which is very abbreviated, we have a legal services report.
No report.
AFT report. Thank you. Valley View Office Council report. Valley View Council report. Office Personnel Council report. No report. Any old business before the board? Any new business before the board? Any questions from the public on activities, actions we have taken this evening? Hearing none, seeing none. Announcements by the board. Everybody have a safe and happy 4th of July. I'll make that announcement. I know that the Village of Romeoville has a celebration on the 3rd at their village hall, and there's fireworks and music and all kinds of good stuff. There's heavy traffic patterns, lots and lots of little kids running around. So if you're in those neighborhoods, drive safely. Of course, on the 4th of July, the Bolingbrook Golf Club in the Village of Bolingbrook hosts their 4th of July. Ditto the same. Hundreds or thousands of people show up at these events. So kindly be careful if you're traveling in those areas, and enjoy yourselves on the 4th of July. Be careful driving, so on and so forth. Stay hydrated. It's very cool or very hot out. Any other announcements by the administration? Any announcements by the public? Motion to adjourn would be in order.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. Have a safe evening.